Hello and welcome to another video lecture for our business ethics subject with our topic principles, theories, and ethical issues in the corporate world. This is your instructor, Dr. Mabel Marie Cotaro. According to Aristotle, excellence is not an act but a habit. Now let us talk about the fundamental principles of ethics by first defining what ethics is. It is a science that investigates the nature of the human conduct. In the process of investigating the nature of the human conduct, it is important that we differentiate between the human act and the act of man. The distinction between these two is an important process in the determination of the morality of man's actions. So, a human act is an action that is considered to be carried out voluntarily, whereas an act of man is an involuntary action. So again, human act when the doer acts by his own initiative and choice without being forced to do so by another person or situation, while acts of man are instinctive, such as physiological in nature. These are actions done under the circumstances of ignorance, passion, fear, violence, and habits. So the nature of the human act are the following. 1. The free and voluntary acts of man. 2. Acts done with knowledge and consent. 3. Acts which are proper to man as a rational being, since man has been gifted with rationality and freedom of will. And 4. Acts which are conscious and under our control and for which we are responsible. Now, there are two categories of acts of man. Number one is the natural involuntary actions. So these are actions of man that are performed intuitively or involuntarily. So examples here are blinking of the eyes, metabolism, perspiration, beating of the heart. And number two is the natural voluntary actions. These are actions of man that are within of man's will, but only for some period of time. Example, breathing, sleeping, eating, and walking. So human acts in relation to reason. There are what we call the good acts. So these are those done by man in harmony with the dictates of right reason. Again, good acts are those that are done by man in harmony with the dictates of right reason. There is also what we call evil acts, are those actions done by man in contradiction to the dictates of right reason. And lastly, the indifferent acts, which are the acts that are neither good nor evil. So we have the determinants of morality. So first is the end of the action. So this refers to the natural purpose of the act, or that in which the act in its very nature terminates or results. Thus, the end of the action of studying is learning. So in short, when we talk about the end of the action, it is the motive or the purpose of the action itself. While the end of the actor, it refers to the intention or the motive of the doer of the act, or the actor of the said act. So this is distinguished from the end of the action. So the motive of the agent varies with the different individuals, while the end of the act is always the same. While when we talk about circumstances of the act, they actually refer to the conditions that affect the human act by increasing or decreasing the responsibility of the actor. Now, according to Aristotle, we must take the middle way or the mean between two extremes. So he rejected all forms of imbalance. We must not only develop our mind but also our body. So virtue comes from the ability to govern excessive or lack of feelings, and extremes would lead to vice. So it's up to you to choose whether good or bad. So that's actually how it goes. So you don't do the middle way, but you have to do the extreme. So according to Aristotle, again, you must take the middle way, the mean between two extremes. However, he rejected all forms of imbalance. So it's actually in the middle between the evil and the good one. So when we talk about business applications on this, we have the first principle of Aristotle, which tells us that in production planning and inventory control, when we talk about finished goods and raw materials, they must be carefully controlled so that the company will not incur too much cost. So again, the principle of Aristotle has applications in business decisions. So the first example here that is given is with inventory control. So when we have finished goods and raw materials in a manufacturing company, they must be carefully controlled in a way that the company will not incur too much cost. And another one is the principle of moderation, which can also be used in determining and planning for profit in business. So examples, too much profit results to greed. No profit results to bankruptcy. So this happens in the reality because when a person has too much wealth or profit, this is a manifestation that he might lead into greed or extreme selfishness. So another business application here is the virtuous conduct is important not just in decision making but also in maintaining moral ascendancy and personal integrity. And success in business is not only measured in terms of profit, but also by the company's moral integrity and credibility. That is why we don't just talk about profit or wealth when it comes to running a business, because it is also a moral obligation of the business to run smoothly with having a social responsibility towards the society or its people, especially its customers. So this is an illustration that we have here. Okay, the first one, as we can see, is a woman who is fond of shopping, and this is one type of pleasure. So for Epicurus, pleasure is tied closely to satisfying one's desires. So the first one is the intense, short-lasting pleasure. So it is just temporary. So one example is when you spend all your money in buying clothes. Well, number two, it is less intense and it is longer lasting pleasure because you can benefit it for a longer period of time, just like saving money for future schooling. Now, the third one is pleasures that culminate in pain. However, even though you culminate pain, you get a good result. For example, going to the dentist because you have eaten a lot of chocolate, but after you have your tooth extracted, then you will be relieved from the pain, of course. And the number four is the pleasures that give us peaceful well-being when we act morally and when we show kindness. So somehow as a person, we do feel very happy or pleasured. It's because we have shown a very defined well-being towards our fellow men. Now, for our activity on this lesson on business ethics, so the question is, how should businesses manage negative responses on Facebook? Again, how should businesses manage negative responses on Facebook?